students, I'm Deepika Bhandari. Today I bring you the next learning episode on behalf of the content writers Dr. G.S. Sodhi and myself. In this episode, we shall learn about the concept of crime, wherein we will discuss the different types of crime with a special mention about the elements of crime. Further, we shall also learn about the different causes of crime and their consequences on the society, the victim and the culprit as a whole. The modules that will be covered are introduction, types of crime, causes of crime, consequences of crime, and finally the conclusion. Let us begin this episode by discussing the definition and concept of crime. Introduction. The word crime has originated from the Latin word crimean, meaning charge or offence. Crime is defined as the commission of an act which is considered dangerous or harmful to the society such that it is punishable under the court of law. In other words, the act of crime is a deviant behavior that violates the law. The act of crime constitutes the type of conduct or behavior that is in violation. It may be either a direct or an indirect violation of the state or local laws. When a law imposed by the judicial system is broken, there is a penalty or punishment imposed for it, the magnitude or form of which varies in accordance with the type of crime committed and the circumstances during the commission of crime. This penalty can include but is not limited to loss of a person's freedom or liberty, monetary penalties or even death penalties in the case of grave and heinous crimes. Having said that, one should try to understand the fact there is no standard definition of crime that can be used in every scenario and takes into consideration all the factors and aspects of the deviant behavior. It changes in accordance with the moral and social code of conduct set by society. The concept of crime often pertains to the violation of moral conduct followed by some level of social disapproval. Also, different people commit different types of crimes, the severity of which also varies. For example, from misdemeanors to violent felonies, some individuals become repeated offenders while the rest might just indulge in this aberrant behavior less recurrently. Let us now learn about the different categories and types of crimes. But before we begin learning about the different types of crime, we must remember that there is no one standard or complete classification of crime that can be used in each and every type of situation. Rather, different types of classifications have been given to address different types of crime. Let us learn about these in this section. The pattern and types of crimes committed have changed. Therefore, crime has been classified on varied basis. Let us first discuss the three general categories of crime. These are felonies, misdemeanors and violations. Felonies are the heinous and most serious types of crimes that an individual commits. Most felony charges constitute a type of injury or harm or the threat of harm to another individual. The type of punishments given to the offender in case of felonies are the maximum, including even death penalties in case of rarest of rare crimes. Let us enlist some examples of felony to have a better understanding of the definition. Felony crime includes personal crimes such as murder, robbery, molestation, rape, etc. Other types of felonies include crime against property, for example, robbery. The next category in this classification is that of misdemeanor. Misdemeanors constitute the less serious offences as compared to felonies. The severity of punishments given in case of misdemeanors is less as compared to felony crimes, mostly in the form of monetary compensation or brief imprisonment. Some examples of misdemeanor include petty thefts, prostitution, disorderly conduct, trespassing, vandalism, careless driving, etc. Lastly, the third category of crimes in the mentioned classification is that of violations. These are also known as infractions. Violations constitute the less serious category of offences as compared to misdemeanors and include offences such as traffic violations or violations of ordinances in the city or district or that region. However, Edwin Hardin Sutherland, a famous American sociologist and criminologist, has classified crimes based upon their severity into two broader categories rather than three, as discussed in earlier. He has classified crimes into misdemeanor and felony. Under his classification, the former category comprises of less serious or inconsequential offences for which the magnitude of punishments given is less, whereas the later constitutes dreadful and more serious crimes that dealt with harsher punishments. Sutherland classified crime into two parts, one is felony and another is misdemeanor. Likewise, Lemert gave another classification of crime where he categorized crimes into two types, namely situational crimes and systematic crimes. According to this classification, situational crimes were those types of crimes that were committed because of the prevailing situations, whereas the systematic crimes included the well-planned and systematically executed offences. Apart from these, we can also classify crime broadly into the following types. These are offences against the person, violent crimes, sex crimes, property crimes, hate crimes, virtual crimes and organized crimes. Let us learn about these one by one. The first category under this classification is offences against the person. Offences against the person usually refers to crimes which are committed with the intention of causing a physical harm to another person. These type of crimes may include fatal or non-fatal offences. Some examples of offences against person are homicide, unlawful killing, wounding or causing grievous bodily harm, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, etc. The next type is the violent crimes. A violent crime is a crime in which the offender uses or intends to use a type of violent force against the victim. This type of crime can be committed with or without any weapon. Further, they also include crimes in which use of violence acts as objective. For example, murder, and as well as crimes in which violence is the means of commission of crime, as in theft or robbery. The third type includes the sexual crimes that constitutes forms of human sexual behavior that are offensive in nature. For example, molestation, rape, harassment, etc. The next type includes the property crimes. Property crime comprises of burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, arson, shoplifting and vandalism. These involve taking over money or property. The next type of crime in this category are hate crimes. Hate crimes occur when a culprit targets a victim because of his or her apparent relationship in a certain social group, usually categorized by religion, sexual orientation, race, disability, class, ethnicity, nationality, age, sex or gender identity. Next are the virtual crimes. Virtual crime refers to a virtual criminal act that takes place through the online platform, such as in a massively multiplayer online game, MMOG. Lastly are the organized crimes. Organized crimes are defined as a syndicate run by criminals for the purpose of monetary profit. For example, begging, trafficking, smuggling, etc. Apart from these classifications, crime can be classified according to the purpose or objective behind the crime. These include economic crimes, sexual crimes, political crimes, and lastly, miscellaneous crimes. Let us briefly discuss their definitions and examples. Economic crimes. These types of crimes are committed mainly for the financial benefit of the perpetrator. For example, robbery, theft, dacoity, fraud, and banking frauds. Sexual crimes. These include forms of human sexual behavior that are unpleasant and offensive in nature. For example, rape, incest, and molestation. Political crimes. These type of crimes that are judged to have caused harm to the state, the government or the nation in some way or the other. For example, espionage, frauds and treason. Miscellaneous crimes. This category of crimes includes all the other types of crime apart from the above discussed crimes. For example, arson, fight and kidnapping. Another important class of crime as inchoate and statutory crimes. By definition, inchoate crimes include the crimes that were begun but not completed. For example, an attempted robbery, a conspiracy, etc. Whereas a violation of a specific state that can involve either property offences or personal offences are categorized under statutory crimes. For example, drinking and driving, selling tobacco to a minor, etc. After having learned about the different types of crimes according to the various classifications, it becomes crucial to learn about an important category of crimes, that is victimless crimes. A victimless crime can be defined as an act that is illegal in the eyes of law, but has no direct victim associated with it. Characteristically, the involvement of criminals in these acts is voluntary and consenting. Therefore, there is no direct harm or injury inflicted on the individual. As a result, there is no direct victim. Hence, the term victimless crime is used to address these types of offences. Some examples of victimless crimes include drug abuse, trespassing, prostitution, etc. The last distinguished category of crime in this module is that of cyber crimes. Cyber crimes are the type of crimes that are commissioned using computers that act as the object of crime and modern telecommunication systems such as internet. Cyber crimes threaten a person or a nation's security and economy. Some examples of cyber crime include hacking, cyber stalking, phishing, identity theft, malicious softwares, etc. These can be broadly categorized into three types, that is, into cyber crimes that target individual, property and government. The next modules in this episode deals with the different elements of crime and how they influence the commission of crime. Let us learn about these in detail. First is elements of crime. The Latin phrase actusreus, non facit reum nisi mens sit rea, which means an act is not culpable unless the mind is guilty. explains the liability of crime. A crime is composed of two essential elements, namely actus reus and mens rea. According to the statement, a voluntary act or omission, that is actus reus, is accompanied by a certain specific intent or the guilty mind, that is mens rea. That is, a crime is said to have been committed when a person commits a guilty act accompanied by his guilty mind or intent. In simpler terms, the physical elements of crime are collectively described under the actus reus and the accompanied mental state is called the mens rea. The general basis for imposing liability in criminal law is that the defendant must be proved to have committed a guilty act whilst having had a guilty state of mind. In other words, it is the fundamental duty of the prosecution to prove both of these elements of the offence to the satisfaction of the jury beyond a reasonable doubt. In the absence of such proof, the defendant will be acquitted. Let us now learn about these two crucial elements of crime. First is actus reus. The term actus reus is derived from the Latin language and is interpreted as guilty act. It is also known as the external element or the objective element of a crime, which when proved beyond a reasonable doubt in combination with the mens rea or the guilty mind ascertains a criminal liable for the criminal jurisdictions. Further, the actus reus comprises of more than just the act. It includes the circumstances and consequences and recognized for liability for the offence under investigation. It is, however, crucial that the actus reus is voluntary in nature. Depending upon the type of actus reus, crimes can be categorized under two heads, namely 1. Where the actus reus is the prohibited conduct itself, for example, driving under the influence of alcohol or driving dangerously, and second, where it is crucial to prove that the commission of crime results in consequences that are prohibited in front of judiciary. For example, vandalism or damage to an individual's private property. The next element of crime is mens rea. Mens rea attributes the offender's mental state. In simpler words, it consists of the internal or the mental element of the offence that complements the actus reus of the crime. As a rule, a person is not liable for punishment in the court of law if the mens rea of the act which he or she commissioned is not established. Mens rea helps the judiciary to differentiate between the individuals who did not mean to commit a crime and those who deliberately committed the crime. Further, mens rea can be studied under 4 different heads. These are intentional, knowing, reckless and negligent. The intentional mens rea is seen in situation where the offender took deliberate or purposeful action to achieve his goal. Next is knowing mens rea. Under this type of mens rea, an offender is completely aware of the fact that his actions will result in criminal activity. The next type of mens rea is reckless mens rea. A reckless mens rea occurs when an offender makes a decision to engage in behavior even though he is aware of the risks involved in his actions. Finally, the 4th type of mens rea is the negligent mens rea. Under negligent mens rea, also known as criminal negligence, a person fails to acknowledge the risks of harm. We will now discuss about the different factors and causes that attribute towards the commission of crime. sociologists trace the causes of crime in one social locale. According to them, no human being is a criminal by birth. That is, they follow the positivists' ideology regarding one's criminal behavior. They hold the social factors responsible for an individual's indulgence in criminal tendency. These are parental relations, the disturbances in the harmony of the family between parents or children, heredity and brain activity, any genetic anomalies that can be influential in initiation of criminal behavior, hormones, disturbances at endocrine level may result in imbalanced emotions resulting in deviance. Education, lack of education promotes criminality. Peer influence, the type of peer group determines whether or not an individual has an edge towards deviant behavior or not. And lastly, drugs and alcohol. Substance abuse is a contributing factor that influences criminal activities. Likewise, sociologists also describe two types of factors that lead to crime: ordinary factors and specific factors. Ordinary factors, these factors include mainly the geographical, sociological and physiological factors. Along with these factors, few circumstantial elements are also considered as the reason for crime, such as family circumstances and peer group. It is the fundamental responsibility of the family to socialize an individual and to impart the knowledge of rules and norms, eventually making him or her a responsible citizen. However, if there is disturbance in the harmonious environment of the family, it will affect the ability of a person to peacefully dwell and socialize in the family and society as a whole, because of which the person can tend to have a felonious or criminal mindset. Apart from the role of family, the type of peer group one has also affects the ability of a person to internalize the norms set by the society to live peacefully. Specific factors, the group of which an individual is a part, is an important factor determining his or her tendency to indulge in criminal behavior. As a result, an individual develops criminal tendencies because of his association with others. These include living in disorganized company. Disorganization breeds crime. Further, in the fast-growing cities, increasing population is one of the prime factors in criminal activities. Urban anonymity is also one of the factors contributing in crime rate. After having learned about the causes of crime, we will now acknowledge the consequences of criminal activities. The aftermath and consequences of crime are far-etched on the victim, the society and the criminal as well. The fear of crime in any society is as damaging as the act of crime itself. It is emotionally taxing for the people who live in fear in high crime communities. The fear of crime can negatively affect the residents' behavior, reduce community organization and deter new businesses from wanting to open in the area on the grounds of increased vulnerability. This adds to the economic distress of an area with a substantial crime rate. Other problems include the fact that the victims of crime deal with an increased amount of distress and disturbance afterwards. Crime has a substantial yet varying consequences on victims, their families, friends and communities. The influence and consequences of criminal victimization can involve injury, wealth and property damage, as well as psychological and emotional repercussions. The victims or their family may sometimes suffer from immediate and short-term trauma reactions. They may experience major depression, suicidal mindset, dependence on alcohol or other drugs, disturbance in relationships, anxiety attacks, and increased risk of vulnerability, etc. Committing a crime has serious social, legal, and economic consequences for the culprit as well. The convicts can be denied government subsidies ranging from rationing on food to allowance for student and housing loans. Along with the loss of basic liberties and freedom, the criminal is also less likely to be welcomed and accepted back in the society even if he or she completes his or her term of imprisonment or other punishments given by the court. We will end this episode with the conclusion. Crime is the commission of an act which is considered dangerous or harmful to the society, such that it is punishable under the court of law. The concept and definition of crime is never static or standard. It differs from society to society and laws for code of conduct laid by it. Crime is governed by its two crucial elements, namely actus reus and mens rea, a combination of which leads to commission of crime. There are an array of factors and causes that lead to the commission of crime, each of which varies accordingly to the type of circumstances and situation an offender was in at the time he accomplished crime. Lastly, the society, the victim, and even the culprit as a whole faces the consequences of crime in some or the other way. With all these information, here we come to the end of today's lecture. Do keep in mind what we have discussed today. This is time for your self-study. If you want to learn more for enhancing your knowledge, you may log on to our website www.cec.nic.in for multiple choice questions, quiz and LORs. Till then, keep studying, stay connected. Goodbye.